Welcome to New Horizons. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. Tonight, I would like to tell my viewers why I chose my guest. David Larwood is an intellectual property attorney, and he will explain that later. David is so multi-talented, and among some of his talents are that he is CEO and founder of Valley Fever Solutions, which is a company that he'll tell us about. The other thing about Dave is that his positive attitude just absolutely emanates everything. David is a polio survivor, and he is a vocalist, and I can't think of all the other things because that'll take up the time. So, Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Plus, you're a KMVT volunteer. That's what I forgot.
Yes, thank you.
And how many times have you been on my shows?
This is my 6th time.
Is it really?
Yes.
But it's been over the years.
Well, we met 10 years ago when my quartet was singing, and shortly after that you had the quartet on, and so the quartet's been on 4 times, and this is my second personal appearance.
But this time I really wanted to talk about some intimate, personal things. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think what we should do, Dave, is start with the fact that you contacted polio. Tell about that, please.
So polio was a big scourge in the early 50s, and before that, polio became important in about 1890 as people moved into the cities. There were all the polio scares, Franklin Roosevelt, lots of people had issues with polio, and polio actually still today is a big thing, and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are spending hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it's $2 or $3 billion has been spent to eradicate the last little bits of polio. Back in 1955, when I got polio, the vaccine was barely out. It had been tried in a few cities. The Salk vaccine the killed virus, had been used in a few cities and tested on millions of people, but it hadn't gotten to where I was. And so I unfortunately caught the disease.
And you were in?
Korea.
Korea. And you were 3 years old?
3 years old.
Okay. How did you deal with that from the time you were that little a kid?
Well, we were in Korea. We'd been there for about a year because my father was a medical missionary, and so having a doctor in the house is very helpful. Unfortunately, he got polio about the same time and had a slightly worse case than I did. So at the time, I was a little kid. So what do I remember of being a little kid? But growing up, it had an impact on me because I can't run, I can't stand on both legs for very long without support mechanisms, crutches or a brace.
So I asked you this a long time ago. Did the kids make fun of you?
No, they never did. No.
That's hard to believe. It must have been something that you did, that you wouldn't let them do it or something. What?
Well, my parents were extremely positive, just constantly reinforcing, and my mother basically took no prisoners. I couldn't use any, this was not an excuse. I did all the household chores, I did activities. Fortunately, I'm the oldest of the family, and she would read to me when I was very young, so I developed an interest in reading and always had that. So they might the kids might make fun of me for other reasons, but not for their limp.
Yeah. So the main thing I want to talk about is that I know you pretty well, over the years, and I've never heard you gossip. That's one of your flaws,
really. Who can we talk about?
No, but everything, you see the glass half full. And how did that happen over the years?
I would say more than half full. My business colleagues, always bringing me back down to earth a little bit because I'm the dreamer and pushing forward. But again, back to my mother, because she was always reinforcing the positive. Lots of kids heard it, but I heard it a lot. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. And so that's just imprinted in me very deeply.
And you really feel that way. It's not put on. It's just part of you.
It is. Yeah.
How do other people feel around you, do you think?
Hopefully positive.
No, but it probably does help.
I try to be very reinforcing. I work in a number of environments where I'm around other people, and I'm always supportive in the times when I have an opportunity to be in a leadership position, even with a small task. I encourage people to find solutions on their own, be creative in their own way, whatever it is, whether it's science, business, art.
Well, okay, so what is an intellectual property attorney?
So intellectual property is something that the law has defined as, we call it a negative right. So if you have a copyright, then that gives you the right to exclude others from copying your work. If you have a trademark which identifies the source of goods, again, it identifies your product as being from whoever holds the trademark. I've spent most of my time in the patent world. Patents are typically technical, although you can do design patents. I've done type design patents. That was a pretty interesting little project. There are plant patents, which I've never done. Mostly I do what are called utility patents. So that might be for a chemical or a manufacturing process or semiconductors or a new type of memory architecture.
And recently, didn't you just get your MBA?
Well, it slipped away. It's been 5 years, but yes.
No way, really?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was interesting. I went back as an experienced executive. They call it an executive MBA, but we did 60%. We did 90% of the work of the regular MBA students in 60% of the time. So we did more work in less time. Had essentially all the content, and the 10% that we didn't do, we already had from work experience. So it's a full-on MBA.
Well, you've had such an illustrious career for such a young gentleman. Could you tell us a bit about that?
My career?
Yeah.
Gosh, I started as a newspaper stringer when I was in high school. I wrote sports stories for high school. College, I was a student, did that sort of thing. After college, I worked as a chemist for a while and decided I want to go back and get a PhD. So I pursued that, got most of it done, got distracted by law school. I did high-tech law I'm still doing it now 27 years later, so I'm still doing high-tech law. It's now a minor part of what I do. But I worked in law firms for quite a while. I worked at Apple Computer for about 3 years, being around a lot of creative people, which is a place, that's the sort of thing that I just love doing. Then I went to a startup that was doing some semiconductor test equipment. And then I went to another startup that was doing semiconductor software for chip design. I did that for 5 years as the general counsel, took them public. And I'd still be doing that, except they got sold to a bigger company, and I had to find something else to do. So then I got involved in my drug company.
Tell about your drug company.
So back to my father, the medical missionary. After he and I both got polio, we moved to the Central Valley of California, which was near where his parents had grown up. Actually, we're halfway between his parents and my mom's parents in LA. And there's a disease in the area called valley fever. And some of his fellow doctors were studying this, and so he got interested in it. So when I was 6, I could spell coccidioidomycosis, which is the name of the disease.
Can you still spell it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I won't have you do that. Yeah.
So I had this interest, and then after my company got sold, after being general counsel, I was looking for something to do, and my mother had gotten involved in this as well. So she had formed a nonprofit to raise a lot of money and spend that money in research on a vaccine, trying to help people never get the disease. And she introduced me to her scientist who told me about his work, and I said, oh, that sounds really interesting, and that's what got me involved in this. So I met his physician partner who's on the faculty at the College of Medicine at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And he'd been working on this project for some years, and I got involved on the business side. I didn't have the MBA yet. Because drug development takes a very long time and they had no money at the time, that seemed like a good time to get an MBA because there wasn't a lot for me to do for a while, and it did work out nicely.
This is kind of a silly question to ask you, but I think it would be good to hear your answer. What really motivates you?
Helping people, working with people, trying to inspire people to do their best, whatever it might be, overcome challenges, engage, feel confident.
Nothing else?
Isn't that enough?
Yeah, it is. It is.
No, I love so my drug company. I'm trying to save lives. We're trying the drug that we're working on is we believe a cure for this disease, which kills 100 people every year. 50,000 people get horribly sick for about 12 weeks. Some have to take drugs for life. Several thousand people have a very serious form of the disease, and it kills some of them, and some of them have to take drugs for life. So we think this drug that we're working on is better than the existing drugs, and that's very exciting.
So it would be a vaccine?
No, a vaccine prevents a disease from starting.
Yeah.
This is a treatment or a cure.
Oh, I see. How far along are you with that?
Not far enough. In the drug development process, people identify a compound that might be interesting, and they test it to see if it might be helpful. Then you test that in animals to see if it seems to be curing them, and those results were very, very positive. Then you test it in humans, healthy humans, to make sure it doesn't hurt anybody. No headaches or side effects that weren't obvious from the testing that's been done in the Petri dish and such. And then you move it to people who are actually sick and see if it actually cures them. That's where we are. We're just about to give it to sick people sometime this year, we hope. And if it works in some sick people, then the Food and Drug Administration requires you to repeat that test and try it in a larger population. And if the tests continue to go well, then hopefully you get what's called a marketing approval, and then you can distribute it widely and make it available to treat the broader population. So we're 80% of the effort, but 30% of the distance to get there. Because the hardest part is doing the initial screening and the safety trials. The thing we're just on the edge of, which is the first test in sick humans, is what's called the proof of concept. It's a critical point, and we're just on the edge of that.
Okay, pretty soon you're going to sing for us, but tell about the Barbary Coasters.
Oh, well, the Barbary Coasters is a barbershop quartet.
Yeah.
It was founded in 1959 by two people that I knew, one of whom is still singing with the group, and he's my best friend at 93. Well,
Yeah.
short of a couple. He's among my top 5 best friends.
Yeah. Oh.
And so he and 3 others obviously founded the quartet in 1959. In the mid-'70s, the bass and the top tenor, he's the top tenor, were still with the group, so 2 others came in, and when I first met them in 1990, that was the composition of the group. About 5 years later, the original bass passed away, and after about a year, I joined the quartet, so I've been with them for 16 years now.
And you're in other musical organizations, aren't you?
I am.
You love it.
I do.
How would you like to sing right now?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is a song from the Broadway show Lost in the Stars. It's the title song, which was based on the book Cry the Beloved Country, which is about a young man in South Africa who leaves his village, goes into town, and falls victim to corruption. And his father sings this song when he's searching for his son. Before Lord God made the sea and the land, He held all the stars in the palm of His hand, and they ran through His fingers like grains of sand. But one little star fell alone. Then the Lord God hunted through the wide night air for the little dark star on the wind down there. And He stated and promised He'd take special care that he wouldn't get lost again. Now a man don't mind if the stars grow dim and the clouds blow over and darken him, so long as the Lord God's watching over him, keeping track how it all goes on. Now I've been searching through the night and the day, till my eyes grow weary and my head turns gray. And sometimes it seems maybe God's gone away, forgetting the promise that we heard Him say. And we're lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, blowing through the night. And we're lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, blowing through the night. And we're lost out here in the stars.
Bravo. Dave, how do you sing without music?
Oh, I've been singing for a very long time.
I know it, but isn't it, I would think it would be so difficult to sing a cappella.
Those are different things. Oh, you mean without accompaniment music?
Yeah.
There's different ways of singing and different
Wait, this thing fell off. Yeah.
different ways of singing. We're just going to clip this back on here.
Right.
You can sing, I used to sing with the San Francisco Symphony Chorus, so you've got a whole orchestra. You can sing with a piano, you can sing in the shower. Lots of people sing in the shower,
Yeah.
which is a cappella without accompaniment.
Right.
I was thinking you meant without the notes in front of me, and that
Oh.
memorization's another whole dimension that some
Yeah.
musicians are good at and some have trouble with.
But you're very good at that, aren't you?
It comes easily to me.
How come?
Oh, who knows?
Oh,
God, stars.
No, really, that to me is so difficult, memorization. And I think that's part of your brain, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Now, do you ever sing with music?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm learning music, I look at the spots. When I'm singing with a group,
Yeah.
I sing with a folk trio. We copied the Kingston Trio and do their sort of thing. There's three of us and we sing harmonies. And that particular group, we've never written anything down at all. We have a word sheet, so we get the words right.
Really?
We usually listen to somebody else having performed it. The guy playing the guitar who started it sings the melody, so we let him do that. One friend goes high, I go low. We just make it up, and we usually learn the song within about 2 hours, and we can perform it an hour later.
Really? Mm-hmm. So you have to find people like yourself that has this God-given talent.
Everybody has different strengths. So in the symphony chorus, people have these wonderful, fabulous voices. And that song I sang, my rumble is not as strong as it used to be because I'm not exercising enough. But I can hit those notes solidly and go somewhat below that when I'm in shape. And so the symphony chorus, there's lots of people that do that very well. But they mostly use music because it's important. You know, if you're singing for an hour, you want to make sure everybody sings the right notes at the right time.
Right. And you're also an athlete. Tell us about that.
Oh, I love scuba diving. I used to do a lot more skiing. I love skiing.
Yeah. What else?
What else? Long ago, I did a lot of swimming, but mostly I've been a desk jockey for the last several years.
I'm springing this on you, but you have had such a life so full. You've had a very rich life, and could you just come up with some really dramatic story? You didn't know I was going to ask you that.
Dramatic story.
A dramatic, that has to have drama.
Well, one story comes to mind. When I was in high school, I was involved in a group called Junior Achievement. And in Junior Achievement, a group of local business people encouraged kids to get together, high school kids to get together and form little companies, and they talk about it. So in my group, we were in an old building downtown and would use corners here and there of basically an unused office building. And so we would meet around a little table. There were about 5 of us, and we had a project. We made covers for phone books, and we sold them. We sold stock and had to do accounting. At the end of the year, we had to see whether we were profitable or not. So somehow out of this, there was a big awards banquet at the end of this season. And so they asked me if I would be the MC for this thing. And I said, what do I have to do? They said, stand up in front of a bunch of people and introduce some people. Okay, sounds like fun. And so I get up, and the room is huge. There's 1,000 people, literally. I've been in front of large crowds. It might have even been larger than that, but this was my first time being in front of a large crowd. I'd never seen one of these things. I didn't know you're supposed to tell jokes. I didn't know any of this stuff. I met the governor of California. He was part of the people being introduced. There were some local politicians. who are being awarded things. And so I'm just reading down the list of, and first we're going to hear from so-and-so, and he's going to present the such and such award. And so I got to about the second introduction, and the assemblyman to the state of California stands up and says, well, I'm not quite as fast on my feet as my colleague. I was actually prepared to do the introduction for the other award, but since he's already given that award, I'll have to make something up on my own. I'm just sitting here dying, that I had introduced these guys backwards. But the first one was so comfortable with it that he just rolled with it and never even let on. It was a wonderful experience.
That's a good
Scary,
story.
but
Yeah. Do you have any others? May I tell the viewers the way I think of you?
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm very fond of you. Of course, we're good friends and we've known each other a long time. But because you do so many different things at the same time, you remind me of the guy the entertainer who has a bunch of plates, and those plates have to keep spinning without falling. That's my analogy of you. And you love it.
I do.
Why do you love it so much? I would be so stressed out, Dave. How do you do that?
I have a lot of interests, and I like to exercise my interests. I get fulfillment from exercising my interests. So just for example, when I first met you, you saw my Barbary Coasters doing a benefit for El Camino Hospital, the Better Breathers Association. And we sang, and you came up afterwards and said, come be on my show. And in the course of planning for the show, Fred, the older gentleman who I mentioned earlier, and I made a number of comments. You asked what were you going to sing, and we sequenced it and talked about, you brought out from us what with the story we're going to tell. And you made a comment to me, either during the planning or shortly after. You said, oh, you should come be on my show. You can produce my show. And so I thought, oh, that's very exciting. I've never done television. So I went through the training program here at KMVT, and we had 5 sessions, and you learn how to use the equipment and think about creating a show and being productive on a show. So I came back all dressed up and fluffed and ready to do something. And you said, oh, well, I have an established crew and they do really wonderful work. Why don't you take notes, or you can be the junior assistant, second
Did
standby
I say that?
cameraman.
I'm sorry.
No. You are so enthusiastic and encouraging, which is what I tend to do. And so there really wasn't this nice position. But over time, I fell into working with another program, that same benefit, that same Better Breathers thing. A year later, I met a different group who was producing a different show here at KMVT, the On the Move folks. And so I got involved with them, and for a number of reasons, I actually did become the producer. I've produced that show, I've written it, I've been the host several times, I've been the guest once. Normally I direct. There's a position called switcher where you're choosing which camera. I've done camera, I do all the roles on that show because your crew didn't have room for me.
Well, but I didn't want you to be producer because I'm the producer and I'm the host, okay? What's wrong with my ego? But I just thought, because you're so organized, and that is my weak point. I'd rather scrub floors than, do organization stuff.
But you asked, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You asked what makes me happy, and that working with people and sort of seeing the skills and helping people realize that they don't have certain skills. So I do a lot of the work in entrepreneurial environments, and so I'll see somebody who's full of enthusiasm, but they don't recognize that they're missing certain skills. They're trying to do it all. They may not be doing it all well. If you could have somebody else help with certain things that they're good at and you're not good at, that's a wonderful thing. So the TV crews here, and I've worked with several of them. I've been on this show. I've been
my crew is the best.
I've been camera on your show several times.
Yeah.
I've worked with your crew. It's a wonderful, wonderful crew. Those crews, those teams, understand who does what well, give them those positions, encourage them.
Exactly.
Sometimes the director is having the camera people work hard, get that shot, go back and get that other shot. And sometimes some of the inexperienced camera people can't do that, or they can't do it live, for instance. There's things that you learn how the team works.
But how come you can do everything, David Larwood? How come?
There's a lot that I don't do.
Yes,
I have so much. Another thing that keeps me interested is there's so much that I still have to learn. There's so many skills that that need polishing. I have many interests that I need to develop more fully.
But anyway, I'm so glad you're my friend, and I'm so glad that I was able to interview you one-on-one without the other singers, but I love having them on, and I'd like to have all of you on again, but it's been such a pleasure just getting to know you and letting the viewers get to know you. And lastly, but not leastly, I don't think those are words, but if you could just give us a hint on how you stay so enthusiastic and so positive and so loving. Really.
Well, there's the glass half full. There's my parents. I've been fortunate in life in that, you know, many things that I've tried have not worked or not worked particularly well, but enough work to keep me happy. I've been on the edge of some pretty important work. When I was a chemist, one of the drugs I was working on became a dominant drug for analyzing heart movement, and that's exciting. Some other work has gone on to, you know, be pretty important in the lives of people. So now I'm doing this much smaller project, but I love doing the arts things as well.
But tell us what we can do.
Each person?
Well, no, just, you know, you have to generalize, but how can we be more like you?
Well, I don't know if you want to be like me, but in terms of
but
loving...
no, with your wonderful traits, really.
In terms of loving life,
Yeah,
find things that you enjoy doing.
Okay.
Do them, reinforce others around you, encourage others to support you, build a pyramid of support. Each person can build a pyramid of support. And so then rather than having one person crying in the wilderness, you have this mountain peak of lots of people helping and supporting each other.
That's exactly the way I wanted to end this program. And it's all been extemporaneous. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne.
And I thank our crew. I can't ever thank them enough. And of course, I thank my viewers for watching. This is from my heart, Dave. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.